With me, Guashi is manager Heroic nowadays. Hi, Guashi, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Fine, thank you. So, first of all, it was again, I think, a difficult season, of course, yeah. And some words about the season for you and for team.
Well, this was a complicated season. It's been lots of traveling, right? Tough results overall, I think, but I feel like it's a new team, so it's understandable. But it's been so many traveling, so much tournaments, like, it's exhausting, you know? Like, we got to the half of the year thinking like, oh my God, we went to all tournaments. Maybe we should have took some rest, maybe some breaks, because now we just are done, you know? So yeah, it's a lesson for next year for sure to be more mindful of like that. You know, let's not go to everything because that's a bit too much. There's just too much tournaments now.
Okay, but I think we also have a lot of tournaments. We have a calendar for next year and after next year, I think, yeah?
Yeah. There's until 2025 for ESL and I think PGL 2026
and Blast and anything, yeah.
It's crazy. It is a lot. It's good, right? It means the scene is alive. There's many people interested in doing events, so.
Yeah. Okay, and personally, it's an interview for more to know what is manager in Dota 2. That's why I want to ask more questions about this. And first of all, how do you come in esports?
Well, it's been many years. I started esports like in 2014, so 10 years now. Back in the Brazilian scene, I would do like streaming, drawing, cartoons and stuff because I really like drawing. And like, you know how Zoe would do those streamings back in the day, like early 2013, like, and my friends were like, you should do that, you know, you draw and it's nice. I was like, oh, okay. And I got to know lots of people from the scene. I attended events. I didn't know what esports was. And I loved it. I was like, damn, this is so cool. Like, maybe I can try it and work on this, do something about it, right? And I started attending events, meeting more people, doing things in the local community, right? And eventually, like, team opportunities show up, right? After so long that you know everyone in the scene, I started working with one of the King RD's teams after he left Pain Gaming. Years ago, we were kids. and then that's when it started. After Unknown from the Frankfurt major, the Atone team, the Shadow thing, they went through a disband and Infamous started, and I got to meet them because I would get screams with them. It was tough to get screams with them because they would never show up. So I was like, well, how do I make this work? So I started to talk to them and be like, hey guys, let's be friends. You know, maybe this is how we can make it work. And I connected with them. They were like, well, you know, we're thinking about maybe doing a new team. Do you want to manage us? Because, you know, you're helping us with this and that. And I'm like, yeah, well, we can try something. And then I started working with the Peruvians, right? 2016 or something. So after that, like, everything changed because it opened up so much more. You know, I already speak Spanish, but then people get to know you do that. So people come to you and, you know, like, they see what you do and there are more opportunities show up, right? I ended up working at ESL in Brazil, thanks to the Spanish too, and like being in Peru for almost a year. They were like, oh, that's nice, you have cool experience, you know? So I got like to get actual work experience as esports, so it was very nice. And then the Cat Burger team happened, right? And I left ESL to focus on that more, travel with them, and here I am, you know. It's a crazy ride to think how, like, from 2014 to now, how it changed. It was so grassroots in the beginning.
A lot.
And 2014 was already a bit late, I think, right? Because it was already TI4, TI1, TI2. Things were already going up like crazy in the international. But in the SA, things just started picking up in 2015, 2016.
Do you remember maybe first team, name team, I mean, where you was like a first manager for you?
The first team that I was manager was called T-Show.
Oh.
It's like, and it was together with a Brazilian org called ENTZ. They're big in League of Legends. That team didn't work well. Then I went to Infamous, and we also did a partnership with ENTZ to play some Brazilian tournaments. So for a while, my main team was kind of ENTZ, where I would go to a team and things would happen with them there, like that. Because the Brazilian org had the money and this teams had the players, right? And they were interested in Dota, and this ended up working out for quite a while. But, you know, back in the day, there was no South American slots, so it was very tough. So, like, it was kind of like orgs would come in and they would be like, yeah, no, South America, a little bit rough still, not the moment, right? And they ended up not coming back. But, like, nowadays, it's so different, right? After the South American slot, everything changed.
What task have you faced? Because different orgs, different tasks, that's why.
Yeah, it depends on the org. Most of, like, every time there's the travel stuff, of course, visa, figure out calendar, figuring out scrims, who you're practicing with, who the team wants to, like, I like literally have food schedule, like what if they're not sleeping on time, what do you do, like things like that. Like me and the coaches, we have together to figure out, like they come to me and they're like, Guashi, you have to wake this player up because he's not waking up and we already tried everything, you have to go and wake him up. So I have to be the one to go like, hey, it's 9 a.m, let's go, that screams at 10, you know, like kind of thing. So like during it happened twice by now. I'm not gonna say which teams they did that, but there was teams that, like, for example, had so much trouble to sleep sometimes that you have to keep, like, get their keyboards and mouse and, like, lock them and, like, no one's gonna play after this time. You're gonna go to bed. And because jet lag or sometimes, like, you know, players, they stay up until late. So, like, you have to figure out stuff, like, very simple stuff to prevent silly problems, you know? Also, like, be close to the players, figure out which ones you have, like, to have more like communication with because of certain problems or some things that can come up. And what else? There's the organization side of things where you have to always be in contact with always clear communication with the org, always like building relationships here and there. I don't do much with sponsorships, thankfully, nowadays, because my orgs already have like departments for that, but like back in the Hamburguesa days as a manager, I would have to do that too. Like it really depends on where the org is and how things are, like social media, if there isn't one, my manager sometimes have to do that. You know, you're kind of like feeling the spots is that things that have to be done and no one wants to do it.
Did you have any helpers when you can choose any task? For example, one person do with maybe documents for traveling, another maybe.
It depends. Sometimes I will have help. Like if, for example, if I'm in a tournament and like there's a tournament next week and I have to figure out flights and stuff, I always have someone in the org that will be willing to help or something. Thankfully, Heroic is great. They always have people to help and the support is nice. It was not like this always. Many times I had to figure out everything on my own. But in general, like I'm happy where I am right now. I'm very comfortable because like I feel like I finally got to a place where I feel like, oh, this is a nice place to be in. I have a good team, have good people to work with, everyone is on the same page, you know, it's nice. So I think like things like that make life easier for a manager. If you're the only person, it's really hard, but if you have a coaching staff that's also like taking care of the players, then like things you have to overwork and think so much about, like, or I mean, like it gets minimalized, right? There's also like when the TI is happening and roster shuffles, right? There's all
TI shuffles, of course.
There's the anxiety of those days too. Like depending on the TI and depending like how the contracts are, you don't leave TI, you don't see any game, you don't talk, you don't go drink with your friends. You're just like going and talking to people, having meetings. Like Singapore for me was insane because of that. So yeah, like it can be crazy.
I think Singapore it was hard because COVID time also, and you need to check where you're going. No, stay in the room.
The Beastcoast, EG time, everything was kind of changed. So like, it was crazy. It was nice. Lots of talks.
Oh, if you say about EG and Beastcoast, of course, and nowadays Heroic, if compare between this organization, not about who's better, but any plus and of course minus.
I think like of course every place has its goods and bads, right? Like for example, Beastcoast is very nice because everyone in Beastcoast loves Dota so much. Everyone is part of the community actively. You know, you see that they're engaged. It has little problems because it's a smaller org, right? It's more limited to what you can do. So like, of course, it's not going to be like, I don't know if you're in a huge org that has tons of money. But like, it was great. I was there for 3 years and I was very happy there. They're great guys. Beastcoast is a very, very cool org. EG is different because they're more corporate and all. Yeah. And like, of course, but it has lots of cons because it's harder, right? Like all the things that happened, like it didn't end up working out in the long term and all that. But like the people that were working there was really nice. And I experienced like so much about working in a more corporate environment, how like an actual big organization is with more like departments that are more organized, how you have to respond to certain things. Like, it's a completely different world for a manager, because it's like you go from, oh, here everything is more chill to, here you have to respond to this, that reports here, So like it's a good experience for me. I liked it, but like it's not easy, you know. It takes a lot, lots of meetings, lots of catch-ups, you know, with different departments. But it's nice. I like the experience. And Heroic is like a mix of both, but in a good place, because Heroic is well established, has good people that really like esports, that are very interested, like they're here, there are so many people from Heroic here, they're always talking to the players, they're actually interested, you know, and you feel that. And when it's already like a more stable, you feel like you're safe, you know, so I don't know, I feel like that's the difference between the three orgs.
Okay, and including in SA, any orgs, infamous, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, in SA, it's hard because the funding for money is harder there, right? Like, our currency in South America is way smaller. So when you're in South America, you're going to reach out to South American sponsors. So the money is already like 4 times lower than you would get in America, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the currency. So it's hard because of that. So in your South American org, especially in Peru, they have way less structure. They have way less possibilities of doing that because of the amount of money available in the currency, right? Even though we have great viewership, it's a harder community, right? Because of the currency and because of where we are, in comparison to Europe or whatever.
In SA orgs more local sponsors or like a local person who has money, something like that?
I think in both cases, right? Because of like the what is it called? Like the amount of a person can purchase with how they win, like in month to month. So like for certain sponsors, it's a bit harder. But that's not true for all sponsors either. There's stuff that there's a more focused, like targeted audience, right? That works in Peru. So it's about finding the right things. But I think that for the local orgs, it's harder because then you ended up like getting only focused on this little available sponsorships, and after some time, it's like, what do I do now, you know? And other orgs keep taking the players out with higher salaries, you know? So it's really hard for the local scene to be established.
Now about players, because you like manager, it's like a parent for them.
It's like their bigger sister kind of thing.
Because most players are young, have not developed personalities, something like that, and often full focus in game, no real life, something like that. And can you tell me how it was with you in any teams?
I think it depends on the players, right? There are some players that they are very reserved and they rather like do their things. They don't really know much about them, but there are certain players that definitely like talking more and sharing more and asking for help and reaching out. It really depends. Not all players do that because they are reserved people. You know, they're there to play games and all. But you always get to know like more about their families or stuff like that. There's players that I know their moms, that they reach out to me. They're like, oh, my son is not answering, or is, you know, kinds of things like that. So like you obviously get to be part of their life, especially depending how long you work with certain players. I find that very nice because it feels like you make difference in their lives a little bit, you know.
Okay, any example? Because as I remember when I asked you about interview with Stinger, as I remember he answered that his parents didn't want to he play in Dota, something like that, because need university and something like that. How you decide this problem?
Oh, I mean, I personally haven't resolved problems with it. I think this is a tough situation to solve between players and parents. Like I wouldn't put myself in that position to try to solve, like, you know, I could give them tips on how like to approach this, but not like would go and solve it myself. But yeah, no, I unfortunately.
Okay, well, maybe you're some, for example, any young player, maybe Pakas, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I like, not Pakas, like Whisper, for example, there's more like, oh, I'm having a trouble with this, what do I do? Like with some players, it feels like you have more of this brotherly, like kind of relation, so you have this exchanges more. Well, I mean, I don't think I should say that about their private stuff, you know.
Okay. Has it ever happened that you were given the right to assemble a team, or your voice did you decide who will stay on the team?
In general, like in Dota, I feel like this is a decision that usually is a team thing, a player thing. Like they're mainly more like, well, we want to play with this, we don't want to play with that, and like I don't think it's my place to say no. I think this one is better, and you should play with him. I would never do that. Of course, in my head, I had like my idea. Like I think this would work better.
I mean, it's like we have different managers, different tasks. It's like Corbin, you know, of course. Yeah, he can decide. Of course, team do it together, like but any manager has more. Patience, something like that, any less.
No, in like for example in Heroic, how it worked, like EG disbanded, right, and Boom started, and I knew Hector and Schofield were available.
Of course, your boys.
and I was like, well, I kind of like, there was both like me and the team, we didn't want to continue working together after last year. Like, it was really tough. I was like, yeah, no, we can walk different ways. I'm good with that. And I was like, well, maybe I can talk to Hector because he was announced. They did good. There's some attention on him. So I talked to him and was like, hey, Hector, let's form a team. Like, let's do something. You're available. Do you have any offers? How's it going? You know? So this is how conversation starts usually, at least for me. I go to the players that I know are available and they know I can trust and that trust me. And I say like, hey, what do you think of doing this? I know Schofield is available. What do we do about we connect? So I connected at them. I already had some more organizations that were interested. Wasn't Heroic at the time. And I was like, well, let's try and do something. And I would go and find the people interested, right? So that's usually the beginning of the work for the manager, right? The tasks is like come later. And then after I get together with them, I'm like, okay, who do we look next? What do you guys think? Who's position 5? Who's position 1? And then we got to KJ, Analog, they discussed. Other orgs were trying to get them, you know, like it's like this it's a grind basically, you know. You have to go to them and be like, look, I will get you something good. I've been doing this for years. I promise it's gonna be nice. And it's like, okay, and at the end it went well because we got a very good org, you know, so I'm happy it worked out. But yeah, usually it's like a few players that decide how it goes, and then after we have a team established, then it's different, right, with the team and the org. Then the decisions is like more broad. But before it starts, as usual, I do that at least.
Okay.
That's my way of working.
Everyone, of course, like a person, has different qualities, knowledges, acquaintance, and it's, I think, could be important, of course, for manager too. And what qualities, knowledge, and quantities do you think need to be a manager in sports?
Well, you have to be very, very patient. It's not easy. It's really not easy. You have to be able to like look at things that for a normal person are absurd and just look at it and be like, okay, this is just another day. This happens. It's fine. We're gonna figure it out. Because like there's some stuff that sometimes it happens that you're just like, why, guys? Come on now. Like, can we not do? You know, like there's some stuff that is just very funny. But it's also so silly that I just find it hilarious. Like, so I think it's like if you can find the humor out of the silliness that happens, this is a great quality. Be patient. Also be willing to help, you know, because like our main goal here is to be helpful to them, make sure that they are having everything without they realize that they need it. So like I think being a few steps ahead on how to provide things that people need, it's nice. Like it's just thinking about the other person, you know. And be willing to talk a lot. Like if you're a shy person, like you have to build connections, you know, you have to build networking. For a manager, it's extremely important. How do you reach out to players? How do you find new opportunities if you don't like network, you know? So like I think this is extremely important. Like without that, it would, if you're not open to conversation, it's not gonna come to you, you know?
Of course. Was there any person whom he looked up to or was guided by when becoming a manager for you?
Well, like very early days, it's very funny. There was one girl in the Brazilian scene that managed a random Brazilian team in a random Brazilian tournament that I play a pub against. And she knew somehow that I was a girl, and she added me and was like, oh, you're Guashi, right? And I was like, yeah, no, it's me. And we started connecting and she explained what she did. And I was like, man, that's so cool. It's really nice. I didn't know this was a thing, you know? And I started managing of like a very friends team, like playing amateur tournament. I was like, yeah, that's nice. But this was like just for fun, you know. And I thought this was cool. But once I started, I think like in the major Croatia minor that we went, was the first tournament that we went with the Wiz for Chris Hector. Alliance was there, and I got to meet Kelly and Loda, and they were so nice and so helpful. Like throughout the whole year, like at TI, they were there too, and there were some shenanigans that happened, and they helped me a lot. And like after that, it was just like every time I needed like guidance or something, I would go and talk to Kelly, and she would help me so much. Like she's like a mom, you know. Like I really like her.
It's so good story.
And I'm so happy that she's here too. Like I got to see her again. It's so nice.
Did you meet here them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. Maybe you asked, not asked, I think talk with other managers in other regions about your work, and maybe you can communicate to, of course, compare your work.
Oh, you know, I do talk.
I mean, difference in different regions.
I feel like we all share a lot of the struggles and I know things that happen at work, because sometimes you're talking to managers and you share something, they're like, oh yeah, no, this is so normal, you know. It is funny because we kind of like, they're all players, they're all very similar in the way they are, you know. So the stuff that happens is just like, and we share things and it's just like, oh yeah, no, the players, yeah. It's just how they are. You know, it's funny, but I think like in general everyone works similarly. There's teams that have two managers like Spirit. Mm-hmm. I wish I had like a second manager to help. I think it's a great setup because it helps so much. It's so much stress, and having a second person to like be there to the team all the time, like Corbin is, I think it's great. I think some teams do that with having two coaches. Like we have two coaches, so that's the kind of thing we have. But having a second manager as the solo manager, then it would be nice.
So great. And of course, the main stupid question is how much can a team manager earn?
I think it really depends. It really depends on the region. It really depends on the team. It really
of course, any numbers from nothing to something like that.
I don't know. Like as I said, it really depends on the region.
In SA.
In SA.
Yeah.
I think it ranges from like maybe there's really low teams and there's really high teams. So it goes like maybe, I don't know,
from $50 to $100 to maximal, any idea?
You mean like per year? I was gonna think per month. It's because in Brazil, when you say like how much do you get paid, you're earned, we say like as the monthly salary. It's funny that people in other countries speak per year.
It's all different,
like,
okay.
Yeah, it is, because I was thinking how much per month. I'm like, I think like it starts around maybe 1K, and it goes like to...
In dollars?
Yeah, this is in like the maybe top 4 teams, you know, and it can go up to like, it depends on how good the team is, but up to 6K, 5K, it really depends. It depends on how good you are negotiating. It really depends, really. Like in different teams, I had different rates of salary, you know, so it really can be.
I think it's good numbers, of course, for SA too.
Because some managers don't get price cuts, some managers do. It depends on how you negotiate things, really, you know, because it's very different from players. It depends on many terms. So this is why it can be a high salary, but you don't get anything, or it can be a low salary, but maybe you get a cut, you know. Like it really depends. You have to think in that.
You can get a high cost, but you can do nothing, and you can get high cost, but you will work a lot. Yeah. Okay, and advice for new managers, for novice managers. Something from you.
Talk to many people. Like try to know as many people as you can. I think is the best thing. Yeah.
You mean any people, or concrete with players, managers, teams?
I mean, like in the scene, of course, right? Not just going
in the industry,
in the venue and talk to anyone. No, like look for the right people and try to get to know them. Like build connections in the scene, of course, because that's what's gonna help you in the end. So I think that. How to start that, I wouldn't know how to say nowadays, but I think that's the best way to do it, trying to connecting with people here and there.
Do you have any new managers in SA? or only old?
No, we don't have any new managers in the scene. Most people I know have been there for like years. It's funny, Dota is like that, right? People have been for a while. Like Kami, Beastcoast manager, I know her since 2014 too, like years. So yeah.
So thank you. It was Guashi, guys.
Thank you.